Want the reward? Do the damn work. Challenge yourself. Inspire change. Choice, not luck. Hey everybody, Todd Crandall, the original sober triathlete, bringing you another awesome Racing for Recovery podcast. And I have Mr. Brett with 2 T's.
Yes, sir.
I love saying that. And I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm going to start off with this question. I let these things roll. I don't script them or whatever. And this got brought up from another client who's here. They were talking about, they thought it would be beneficial if we had more people who are successful coming back in to talk to or be around our current clients. So, having said that, my first question to you is, what is your life like today?
It's awesome. Right off the rip. I came a long way. I was so convinced that the life I have today was not attainable back then, that I was, unique in a way that I could never be fixed. And I was convinced of that, and then I lived that life for so long, I just got comfortable there. I could do that, I could live that life. I could, I could mess stuff up. I could steal, rob, thief, I couldn't find a foothold in a positive way forward, I didn't know how to.
Wow. What an intro. I've done quite a few of these, and I don't think I've ever had that type of reaction this soon in a podcast.
When you've come as far as I have, that's why I continue to do the things I do in recovery, because I value the life I have today with everything.
I love it. Okay. God, this is going to be good. So with the Brett with 2 T's, which I love, but correct me if I'm wrong, you did not like that at first, right?
Okay, so just so everybody knows, you wrote my name wrong on the board when I raised my hands. You wrote it with 1 T. And I said, hey, there's 2 T's in Brett. And then it just took off from there. Brett with 2 T's.
I did not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it now?
As far as what?
When we were laughing right before we started, we were joking, and you go, I see nothing's changed here. And I said, no, it's gotten worse with the joking and the banter. That just kind of became a thing with all of us here for a while. That's how we knew you, Brett with 2 T's.
Yes. And I think to kind of like fill in that story a little bit more, I was here at Racing doing all the things and the stuff for like 4 months before I even met you. You were out doing your thing, your Iron Man or whatever. And it was like, you hear a lot about you and, all the things. And it was like, where is this dude? Is he ever going to get here? So that was like our first group, I think, that happened. Yeah. And you wrote my name wrong on the board, and I'm like, no, I got to get this out the way right now.
Well, and you know what that is? That's an example right off the bat of you having self-esteem. So furthering our conversation, that's the ultimate goal for people like us, is to actually value who we are. But you doing that then shows it was in you. Whether you see it or not, that's the stuff that I look for. I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy, he's saying what's right, because a lot of times people would just let it go, So I know about you. We've done quite a few individual counseling sessions. I am not going to say anything unless you bring some of this stuff up. But I would like to start getting into, what was your concept of what Racing for Recovery was like and what you were going to get out of it when you came in on day one?
I'm not from the area, from Cleveland, East Cleveland. I had never, didn't know of any type of treatment facility or where, how, or what to get help. So I just knew that where I started my recovery journey, I wanted to be anywhere but there. It's pretty much how that started because of the way that it was handled and the way it went. So I was like, well, if I'm going to continue this on, this isn't, if it's going to continue on like the way this place is being run, I need to try something else. And so I had asked around with the people in there that have been here before what it was about. And, there was a few key things that sold me on it, of knowing that I was going to give this a try. And at that time, as selfish as it was, the housing part of it was a big seller for me. And I wasn't real too thrilled about you had to get up and work out at that moment, but it was like, whatever, if it gets me a place to stay, and I can work on myself, then, it was by God's grace, really. I mean, yeah, it was God. It was a God thing.
Wow. I hear in that a willingness. I hear an open mind. I hear some, hey, I don't want to, but I also hear I'm going to do it because I want the results. I hear all of those are positive mindsets to have. And to be honest with you, that's what it takes to be in the chair that you're in now as a success. So why don't you talk to people about what your journey was like here, the struggles, the good stuff?
Can I rewind just a little bit before that?
Do whatever you want, yes.
Okay, so I was homeless. I was living in my drug dealer's basement in a relationship that was just fueled with drugs, lies, and just not a good relationship. It was the only place that would take me. I landed there. The life I was living. Bouncing around. I'd steal your wallet and help you look for it type individual. And I was my personality and I think that I was in survival mode, man. So I would do whatever it took, or I'd be that person you needed me to be around, and while using and drink, all that. And so I was living in that basement, and they kicked me out. They're like, you can't stay here no more, and they took me to it's a halfway house for people reintegrating from prison. Is the only treatment for drugs or alcohol they had that they knew to take me. I'm sure there was more around, but that's all they knew. So they dropped me off there, and I get in there, and I just knew that there's people getting high in there, and there was there's people reintegrating from prison, halfway house from prison, and I just knew I didn't want to be there. So I checked out, and when I checked out, I didn't have a cell phone. The only thing I had was Wi-Fi on a phone. So I walk across the street to Walmart, hop on the Wi-Fi, and I start, Text Now app. I'm trying to call. That was another big moment, man. I called everyone I could think of for a ride, and no one would come pick me up, and that feeling of how lonely that felt. I can't forget that. I felt so alone. And I called everybody I could think of, and the list was small, but, the people that I really thought would come through in that moment didn't. And so that was so I was like, well, it looks like the only way I'm getting back to where I was at, I got to walk. And so I start walking, and I'm still on Wi-Fi, so I map it, on Maps while I'm online, and it's a 9-hour walk. So I'm like, well, it's the only way I'm getting there. And it was I don't know, 5, 6 o'clock at night. So off I go.
Wow. I'm glad you wanted to take this route. I usually start one way and talk about the good and kind of go back into the bad, but I'm glad we're doing it this way first.
Well, this walk's important because a lot happened in that 8 hours,
Go ahead.
So of course I'm fueled off of anger, resentment. I'm just mad, and after about 4 hours of that wears off, and now it's dark, it's cold. It's I think it was February at the time, maybe beginning of March or something. And there becomes a point where like I'm just on like it's like a 2-lane highway kind of, and I'm by, there's no cars. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I just start screaming at God, like out loud, like screaming, and that moment was like that's my bottom moment, that's where it hit, like, and I pretty much said, as I'm speaking with God out loud. If something's going to happen, it needs to happen now. If you're going to intervene and do something, it needs to happen now because I don't know what else to do. I don't even know if they're going to let me in when I get back to where I'm going. So I get there, and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and of course no one, it's freezing cold, and this guy had like this like, makeshift like tarp tent that he kept his lawnmower in. And there was a pallet, and I just laid down on that pallet off the ground till it got light. And I heard someone close the door, the back door. And when I look out and look, it's the woman from across the street. And I was like, oh, hey. She goes, what are you doing here? Because she knew what was going on. And I'm like, I left. I had nowhere to go. And she's like, you can come stay at my house, but she's like, you got to go to treatment. So at that point, I was just like, well, okay. So I go across the street, and she started making phone calls, and was able to call, like, you get the Medicare ride or whatever. And she set that all up, and they came pick me up, and boy, I did not want to get in that car. I had to fight tooth and nail. She's like, well, if you don't get in that car, you can't stay here. And so I got in the car. I didn't want to. Did not want to. And cried the whole way on Route 8, take 80 the whole way here from Cleveland. And about halfway, I finally stop, and the guy that drives the car, he's like, this is what I do, but this is what I do now. I'm 3 years sober, and I've been where you're at, And I remember him talking, but I don't really was not receiving it at all, I was so angry. And he asked me if I was hungry, and I was. And we stopped, and I finally started opening up a little bit. And, I remember him saying, give yourself some time. He's like, if after doing this for 6 months, you feel the same way you do, you can always go back. He goes, just give this some time, man. He goes, it's the best decision I ever made. And he went on with his story, which was a lot like mine, And so either way, looking back on it now, it was really good advice, but I wasn't open to it at all.
You know what's interesting? What you're sharing is riveting, okay? And I hear you when you're saying you're yelling at God like that, the desperation. But yet, when God answers with first the lady, then the cab, you don't want to do it.
Isn't that crazy?
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
You know what's funny is I didn't realize that God answered my prayers until we go to the Bedford Alliance Church meeting from here, and which I attend all the time now, awesome. And got baptized there,
Awesome.
And I was in one of those meetings and just kind of sitting, I'd been here like 4 months at the time, I think 4 or 5 months, and yeah, he answered my prayer, maybe not in the way because if you think about it, if he'd have waited for the magic wand and poof, my life was better, I'd have thought I'd gone crazy. So in the way that he could, he did. My life has been seamless, and it has gone so smooth since that moment that I can't explain it,
This is beautiful. What were you mad at him for?
Well, ignoring me. At least I felt like I was being ignored, But in retrospect, he was trying to teach me a lesson, because I feel that like had I not gone through the things I went through, I wouldn't appreciate what I got today.
I totally agree with you on that.
You know.
Were you cognizant of the stuff that you and I have talked about individually? Were you aware of how much that was impacting your life at that point? Or were you just like, I'm aware of drugs have put me, were you putting the whole puzzle together at that point?
I don't think at that moment. I just knew that I was open to do anything that other than what I had been doing, and So once the door was opened of like, okay, what I'm doing is not working. So, and I already had proof that like, my life got seemingly better pretty quick, in 3 months of being here. I mean, it got pretty, there was a lot that, when you're that low, just having I came with nothing. My day one, I didn't have a bag like some of these people come in here with. They had bags and bags of clothes. I had my clothes on my back, and now I have a closet so full of clothes that I give away clothes, and that's, when I walked in here, I saw someone in the waiting room, I remember that day.
Yeah.
I do. And I was watching the podcast, of Dean, and it felt so far away from attainable, at that moment. I was like, that'll never happen, and
Look at you.
yeah.
Wow. How, you messaged me today and saying, hey, are we still on? And I was doing morning group. I broke the rule and got on my phone. I told everybody. But you're here.
Yeah.
How were you? How long have you been thinking about since we booked this? Okay, how long has this been on your mind, planning what you were going to say? And
Since we booked this, every day.
wow,
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Oh, yeah.
And it happened organically.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that was another big shocker, because because eventually I probably would have started nagging you, but yeah, I really wanted to do this. Was on the goal sheet, man. I wanted to do Ignite Euphoria, which was the podcast you were doing at that time, and you've now since reformatted it, which is cool. But yeah, I just wanted to be someone in that waiting room watching the TV, listening. That impact it had on me at that moment. This is just my way of helping, giving back to that.
That's why those podcasts are running in that room. That's why. Yeah. And people, I've had it go either way. I've had some people who have sat there like you and they've seen it and they're like, I'm going to do that. And then I also understand, because I'm with you, like, sitting there going, I see that, but I don't know what that is. I don't know if I can do it. That's okay. As long as you stay here, it's going to change.
That's why I liked when I saw Joey's podcasting the why. Without a big enough why, you won't figure out the how. Wow. You got to have a big enough why to figure out the how, or you won't figure out the how.
Yeah.
And I related to that 100% when he said that. That gave me chills when I saw that. And I was like, that's it. That's it. You have to have a big enough why to figure out the how.
What's interesting about this? You talk about us being here today, and again, dude, it's so good to see you. Happening organically. Your name has been mentioned a few times for this. We paused the podcast for a while because I was doing what we were doing, and we were trying to think of a new format. Which, by the way, the Matt and Abby, who are doing our stuff now, they're doing a phenomenal job. Not that our only other guy wasn't. Having said that, though, do you think if we would have had you on earlier, it would have had as much of an impact as what you're obviously having today? Mm-hmm. Or do you think by waiting, it's more?
I mean, I feel that like, it's God, man. It's God. It's he knows.
Yeah.
And that's why when I saw the new format come out and was watching it, I'm like, okay, and so when you asked, that's why I jumped all over it.
That's
it was
great.
Yeah, 100%. I'll never forget, the gift I gave myself of coming here and letting go of the wheel for a little bit, having a place to stay. Not having to worry about nothing but me, work on me. And I knew at my age, with the opportunity I was given, that those don't come around all the time. And I wanted to, jump all over that opportunity, not let it come and go and regret not, doing it. And, but by all means too, like, I had no family, I had no friends, I had no one, I couldn't call a soul, and I just, something about that feeling and being in that is life-changing.
How many of those people can you call today and they'll answer?
I got a lot. I got my family back in my corner. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So, anything else from your past? Anything like that you can share with somebody that they can relate to on the pain? Not necessarily the details, if you know what I'm saying, but the pain that you can share with somebody to give them some hope.
It's really difficult in the moment because, at least for me, I was so convinced, like my brain was convincing me, that old self-talk, of, it's hard to get out of that. That's one of the biggest things I think that's so different for me today than back then is my self-talk. I don't like, there is no, oh, here we go again type stuff going on. There's not like, well, that's just what I do. If something bad happens, I look at that as an opportunity for growth. And, because I deliver for Amazon and I chip fractured my foot. Life was going by so smooth and zinging good and everything's great. And I broke my foot. And the funny thing is I was so overwhelmed with work and Prime Week with delivering and the hours and like I was praying for a little break. I was praying like, okay, I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed here. Please give me a hand here, slow this down a little bit. Well, what's he do? Breaks my foot. And if you want to slow somebody down, you break their foot because course of action is stay off it.
Wow.
So that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Well, like one of, not the best thing, but one of the best things that ever happened to me because what came of that was I had to find a new way to fill new things to fill my time. And I didn't want to do it just sitting around watching TV or sports or anything like that. So that's how I found Zoom recovery groups. And it led me to 3 solid Zoom recovery groups that I still attend on my days off. It's been a very awesome experience knowing that I can still use technology to be on, and do recovery. I did my Zoom meeting before I came here.
Awesome.
And I was telling everybody about it, and they're all excited to watch it and stuff. It's just a whole other community of people to, give advice to or get advice.
Well, one of the things I notice about your cute little smile is you have all your chiclets back in there, and you had mentioned right away when I said that, you were like, I didn't do it with any pain meds or anything,
Yep.
and I'm going to relate it to the foot.
Again, nothing. I told them right away. That was my biggest fear going into the ER. Is like that was the one thing on my mind. It wasn't the foot. It wasn't the fact I wasn't going to be able to work for 2 months. It wasn't like how I'm going to pay my bills. It was I know they're going to want to try to give me pain meds and I can't take them. So instantly to alternative ways to deal with that. And so I did some research. And I talked to the physician there was a little shocked, that I didn't want opiate pain medicine for my injury. And after the research I did, and I was like, I put it to the test. It's Tylenol and Advil, the mixed of the two. And don't not do the, when you have a regimen, you don't miss.
Yeah.
Because when I would wake up, I'd feel it, it'd be throbbing. But just that mixture was, and the same thing when I got all my teeth pulled out, did the same thing. Did Tylenol, Advil, back and forth, little regiment, and I was shocked of how it helped me deal with the pain.
How did that help you overcoming that, what we can call the right way? I'm not saying that to offend anybody, but in our way, the right way. How did that build your self-esteem and confidence?
That I was implementing new thoughts and ways by default, but just like, I didn't really know. I don't really notice things till after the fact, but in retrospect, I'm like, wow, because, I'm only a year and some change into it, being sober. So it's interesting when I reflect, because my old life's still kind of fresh, you know? So there are some things that kind of, I'm shocked at that, wow, you know, and it's always after the fact. It's never real time, you know?
I do, and you're reminding me of our Cleveland book. Big idea number 3 is we're not immune to life's hardships, right? And number 4, I don't have to use drugs to cope with them. Right. And you're speaking 2 examples just right there medically on how that works.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. The scary part was so when I got all my teeth pulled, I had a doctor that had a plan for me. We were going to do it in sections. And because she knew and was aware of my, I didn't want to do the pain medicine thing. So we were going to do it in 3 visits. Well, she went on to another job somewhere else, and this other doctor took over. And so the day that I'm there for day 1 to start off pulling, I think it was 4 or 5 teeth, he was like, he looked at me and he goes, "This is going to go a lot smoother if we just do it all in one day." And I told him, I said, "Hey, the pain medicine thing and all that." And that's when he suggested the Tylenol, Advil thing. And I was like, "Let's do it." I was so scared, but I was like, "Let's do it." And it wasn't easy. I lost a little sleep. It wasn't comfortable, but doable.
Was it more comfortable than sleeping on that pallet?
Right.
Is that right?
Because I knew telling on myself, I'm not going to awake the beast. That's really what it would have done. Wow. That the minute them pills kick in and you get that feeling, you start scratching, it's like, and all of a sudden the animal's awake, and I had come too far and overcame so much at that point. I'm not gambling with that. I'm just not by any means necessary. So
I'm not quite sure what to ask you from here. It's more of what else do you think you want to say with respect to the adversity? I love the success of people, okay, but I love hearing the adversity that led to the success. Why don't you give us some more things that have been, difficult in your sober journey? And you did, and I want to make this known. I think you said 1 year and 3 months or 4 months?
I'm not exactly sure. At March 23rd.
Okay, great. Yeah. Over 1 year and you're kicking ass.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
What other things are lessons that you want to share with people of, hey, I endured this. This is how I overcame it, and I feel great by doing so?
I like to refer it as detoxification of my old life and my old way of thinking. And, and that continues on when I want to implement anything new. I have gotten used to, I've gotten comfortable being uncomfortable, because the amount of times that I'm going to be comfortable getting what I want is never going to happen. Getting what I want is uncomfortable. It's time for growth. And, the amount of times that the amount of times to where, that I'm going to enjoy doing what I'm doing, to get to where I want to go are not going to outnumber the times that I don't. So I've gotten used to doing things that I don't necessarily want to do. I've gotten comfortable being uncomfortable. And like I said, that continues on, even moving forward. When you leave here, life kind of, you get to work, you pay bills, and now it's game time. You got to start implementing the things, and it's difficult when you're not used to doing something. It's hard to recognize when those times are to implement things you've learned. And my girlfriend has really helped me, become a more effective communicator. I didn't realize how I would just feel a certain type of way and not be able to put it into words, and be able to express that in a healthy way, and that has been refreshing to be in a relationship with somebody to where I feel like I'm heard no matter what, even if it's going to start an argument or, we don't necessarily agree on something. I know that the love is there at the end of the day, and that, you know, even though we may not agree on something, we're still working towards the same, you know, goal.
So hearing you say that, we recognize, and I do, we need to improve on the transition for you guys, because there's one thing that's for certain: there's no definitive way. I can't say you do this, this, and this, you're going to be okay. We don't talk like that. And it's been interesting where, you know, I can show you other people that have taken your route at the time you did that it didn't work. I can show, and then I can flip it this way. There's no rhyme or reason. What is in there is providing as many successful examples, hence this podcast, as we possibly can, to show a different person, different circumstances, yet similar, that has made success in their own way. And you are clearly that.
It's interesting you say that, because, you know, I've been doing a lot of thinking about, like, you know, this podcast and all that, and, you know, and thinking about my memories here. And, you know, I've been in them groups and in them rooms with people that were here before me that aren't here today. Yeah. And I was convinced that they had it. You know, I was like, they were giving me advice about things, how I should handle life here. And, you know, and the advice that person gave me helped me immensely. And then for him not to make it, it was a big blow to me. And that's when I was here about 6-7 months. You know?
What do you think they didn't do that you've done?
Honesty. Tell on myself.
Yeah, I agree. And you also, and I don't even know who you're talking about. It doesn't matter. No. I don't want to know. Yeah. The point is, there's reasons why. And I think and it goes back to some of our heartfelt individual conversations, you went to where the problem was and you dealt with it to the best of your ability, and it worked for you. And I think that's what people that don't make it, that's what's missing.
And I would say too, like for me in the past, when I was trying to sober up, you know, there were some traumas that I would leave out or not deal with effectively, purposefully, because I knew I could use that card, the hidden reservation. You know,
that's honesty.
I could pull that out and lay that down anytime I want. You know, and me not having my son in my life was a huge one. You know, that was a huge one. And what I've came to is it's forgiveness. I had to forgive myself. Yeah. You know, I am not that same person I was then. You know, the person that sits here today would not handle that the same way. And so I have to give myself the grace and I have to forgive myself, because what good does it do to beat myself up with that stuff? You know, to make it okay to go destroy my life, you know, like what sense does that make? You know, so I just didn't, anything that doesn't serve me, I'm not about it.
Do you remember the IOP group where you were talking about that situation with your son in court? And you were on the back wall to my left. I remember it. And I heard you. And I remember some of the questions I asked you about, is that really all whatever? And it was that's my way of like pushing and pulling the more honesty out of you. I remember that exchange.
I remember it because you kept asking me questions I didn't want to answer.
I know. but
I did.
You did.
I did. But I opened the door by, you know, sharing.
Yeah, you
know,
did.
And then I instantly regretted it. At that moment. Yeah. At that moment. I'm grateful now.
Yeah.
You know, but in that moment, it's, you know, it's tough. You know, speak your truth. You know, like real, like, I don't even know if there's, like people say, oh, real truth. Is there another kind? You know, it's the truth. Yeah. And, I finally got to that point in my life where I was able to be in a environment where I could share my truth, trust the environment. Anything I said wasn't going to be like canonized or weaponized against me. It took a while, you know. That's why, like, you know, it took me a long time. I mean, how long did it take me to get my knee to stop going like that, you know? You know what I'm saying? So it took me a while to trust that room, you know, and the people in it. And once that trust was gained, that's when the magic really started happening for me in them groups. I don't know if you know this, but the first 3 months I was here, I did day IOP and night IOP.
Yeah, you were doing a lot.
Yeah, I did both because idle time for me is the devil's time, and I even gave my TV away when I over at the suites. I didn't want a TV. I just wanted to concentrate on everything me, and
You know what's interesting? I listen to people, as you know, and your voice, it's changed since we've been talking. But at first, it was like on the verge of, like you were going to almost break down in happiness, which would have been fine. That's the same type of cracking in your voice that you had initially with your knee always going. And it was, what I'm trying to convey here is it's the inflection, if that's a word, in your voice is still the same, except this one is healing. And it's almost just like grace and gratitude and pride and relief. And that's the difference of having that same type of voice, one that is in fear and anxiety that transfers into this beautiful aura that you're now having. It's awesome.
And that's, when I started doing the Zoom recovery groups, there's a newcomers meeting I go to, and I get, there's healthy reminders in there, and it's, healthy, like you said, fear.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure if I'll ever make it back, if I were to make that choice to, go try it again. I'm pretty convinced that at my age and just how I know how I am, I don't think I'd make it back.
I want you to talk about this too, because obviously at some point you felt safe here. You felt comfortable that you would speak the way you did. What was it about this place and the people that allowed you to do that somebody else can hear you talking about?
So, I was pretty fortunate in the people that were put in my path. Like I said, God was in the way the whole entire time, putting these people in these scenarios and in my path to maximize my time here. And, Chef Dean, if it wasn't for him and Michael Herbster, there's no way I would have made it through here. Michael talked me out of, because he was my therapist when I was here, and he talked me out of leaving once a month, probably twice a month, and my journey here wasn't really smooth either. My case manager that I initially started with ended up moving on to somewhere else, so I had to get a new case manager, and luckily I was through. I had been here like 6 or 7 months by that point, so I had a pretty good handle on it, but no, Chef Dean has impacted my life and the advice that he's given me because he's been through this program here. So I knew right away the advice he was giving me and how it was affecting me, that he was a good person to go to for advice. And then, of course, Michael, he helped me, to the church and how to implement recovery with the church. And I got baptized. Yeah. That was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, man.
And it's just been, and Steve, him there too. He's awesome person. Just when you're around his energy, is you feel it, the love and like he honestly, genuinely cares what you have to say, no matter what it is, and those kind of people are hard to find,
You are now one of those. I haven't seen you in a while, but you have the glow, man.
Yeah.
You can see it. You can feel it, and that's a beautiful thing. And Michael, I remember him coming in here on day 1 too. I remember Dean coming in here, just like everybody else. And those are the examples that, like you said, you're watching it on a podcast. You may not think you can do it yet, but you see it.
Yeah, provable data.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%,
absolutely.
100%. And it's they use the term like terminally unique. Like there's nothing out there that can help me. And you convince yourself of that. And what if you're in that place where you're convinced that nothing can save you? that's where I was at.
Yeah.
You know, that's a scary place to be.
Wow.
You know, and you know, I didn't have the ability to, you know, ask for help or, you know, let go of the wheel long enough to like let real change happen. You know, and again, I'd always go to my go-to, whatever I had in that closet, that you know, all the things that I would hang on to that I wouldn't deal with, you know, or forgive myself for, you know, I could pull that out to make it okay to do what I wanted to do, you know, to just punish myself and just whatever I wanted to do. Didn't matter.
What goals, you know, just list this, your testimony, as they say, this is powerful. What do you see yourself doing in the future? Like, what goals do you have now moving forward?
I'd like to be married, you know, move to Florida. Those are two big ones.
Why on both?
Well, moved to Florida because we Jackie and I vacation there, visited her parents, and it's beautiful down there.
Yeah.
The weather's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just getting, you know, sick of the cold, you know, and you know her parents are down there, which are two beautiful, awesome people, you know. It's just been a delight to her family, her, and to experience them for the holidays. You know, they make me feel very comfortable, like one of the family. You know, so it's been an awesome experience to enjoy them.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, move down there. You know, they live down there. Her family lives down there, so be around them every day would be cool. Her dad's a really cool dude. You know, and we get along great, which is nice. You know.
That helps.
Yeah.
If you're married, that helps. Did either of them have a past experience with substance abuse at all?
No, no. Well, just with
Jackie, yeah.
yeah.
So they understand it from the
yeah.
family's point
Yeah.
of view.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why they've been more welcome to you?
So when we vacationed down there, we did talk. Me and her dad, you know, and so he did say his concern was that it could go one or two ways. It could go really good, or it could go really bad. You know, and I'm pretty sure that, you know, we're showing that enough times gone by, it's going really good.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so.
What does being married do for you?
I just feel that it's a promise to another person that, you know, you're mine and I'm yours and that's it. You know, I've always wanted to be married. I just never had found the person that, you know, or I don't think I was even I wasn't a marriable person, you know? So, I'm at a point in my life now where I feel like I could do a marriage and do it effectively in a positive way and it not affect me negatively. Or, you know, like the reasons are there. The right reasons are there. I've never had the right reasons before. You know, if all the other people I were with was like circumstances, like my circumstances landed me with this person. You fit into what I had going on, which wasn't good things.
Right.
So, you know, it was a mess.
You mentioned Dean. What did your kindness and volunteering in that kitchen? And I appreciate that our people who are coming here did too. What did volunteering your time in that kitchen do for your recovery?
So for me, I would say there was a lot of things that would go on outside of outside of here.
Yeah.
That I was trying to shelter myself from because
Yep.
I know me. And I knew if I met the wrong person, I would be right there, right along with them, you know. And because when I first got here, you know, there was a group of people that made the choice to do a lot of nasty things over there. And you know, I wasn't really here long enough to be close enough to them, but I was here early enough to identify like I don't want to be part of that. So I had to find things to fill my time when I wasn't over there to be over here. And that kitchen was awesome. And Dean, you know, he's, you know, he can take a joke. You know, it's not everything's so serious. You know, you can take a joke, you can talk to him like you know, and you know, and he'd been here before and been through it, so it was, you know, good advice on that front. And you know, he talked me out of leaving a few times. for sure, and that's why it became difficult at the end of my journey, when he, was trying to convince me to continue my journey here.
Yeah.
And I had felt at that moment that, it felt like going backwards instead of moving forward. That feeling was there. It might not necessarily been true, but it felt like I was moving backwards, not forwards.
Yeah.
So it was just a good indicator of like, okay, my journey there has come to an end, and it's time to take this new Brett out for a spin and see what it's all about.
I like it. And that's the beauty of, what we're trying to do here. And I mentioned it earlier. We've seen enough to put some fairly good statistics together that if you do this and if you do it this long, here's what we've seen. And there are other cases like you where you've done it. You just didn't do it maybe as long as we wanted to for your own safety in our mind. But that doesn't mean that's what's in your heart and soul. And I love when you just said right there, the feeling I had was this. And I'm like, no one can go against that.
Yeah.
Your feelings and everybody's feelings are valid.
Yeah.
We're going to always say what we need to say.
Yeah. Well, that was a scary moment because it was the first time I confidently made a decision in my life since this journey started. Because I was pretty much just like, okay, I'll do whatever you want. Sure, I'll go to the groups. I'll do the morning. I'll help in the kitchen. I'll do all these things. And it was the first decision I had made on my own confidently that like, yeah, I wished it had ended different. It was time to move on.
How did you feel then, and how do you feel now making that?
Oh, I feel, empowered now. But at the moment, of course, I question myself. Like, is this the right decision I want to make? It was, I had to give myself the time. I've learned patience. That the things that I want take time. Anything worth doing is going to take a little bit of time. But like, you're fueled with a life of like instant gratification. Since I was 16, I think was the first time I used instant gratification. To okay, now I'm 42. We're going to change that. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't.
No,
it doesn't.
No. So to turn that off was, being aware of it, number one, and then number two, putting effort into turning that off. It's been very freeing.
We're at the same point that I've asked you a ton of questions. Is there anything you want to ask me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
was it that quick? Okay. Yeah.
So you have the nickname the Juice.
That's another one that's been given to me.
Well, they call you the Juice.
Yeah.
So would you can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I never really got like the full story from you, I don't think.
That has to do with the juice that is made that I get to kindly drink every day, right? Or maybe I'm not even aware of this specific nickname.
I'm not sure.
Maybe you let the cat out of the bag.
I'm not sure. An old childhood friend of yours, I think, told me about it and told me to ask you about it.
That's interesting because I am sober today. I should remember that, but I only remember that with being associated with drinking the juice that's made in here every day. I didn't know it was a specific nickname. Oh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Who's the guy?
It's Sean. One of Sean's, he knew of him, and then we was doing work with Sean, and we went out to eat, and he was there.
Okay.
And it's one of your buddies that you went to California with or something.
Huh. Okay.
I don't know. He's like, next time you see him, call him, hey, Juice.
I don't know. I got to have him on the show to figure that out. Yep.
No. So another question is you've been doing this a while, and of course I think you see everyone kind of come through here, and like of course I saw Lindsay, which was awesome to see. Like people come through here, and that like I want to work in the field, and I want to and and I felt that too at some point. After being around for a while, I just knew that I couldn't handle the failure end of it. How do you put all the time and effort into something like you do? because I know that you love this place above it. Like you put a lot of thought into how this place is run and how you handle, the people effectively going through treatment. How do you handle the losses?
This is probably another one of those godly things. This just got asked of me today.
Wow.
There's a gentleman here like you. He's doing great. And he's thinking about going into the field. And he asked me the same thing. He goes, Todd, how do you deal with the dark side of sobriety? So I'm going to answer it this way. First of all, I know why I started this. I started it for the good side of sobriety. I didn't know there was a bad side of sobriety. And I never want to lose that. Now, over the course of these years, do I fully understand there's a dark side of sobriety? Yes, and it hurts. I always hold back to the good side of like sitting here talking to you. That's what keeps me going. And I've learned took a long time, that dark side, I had to learn to save my own mind to get out of whatever that is as quickly as I can. And I said this earlier in group, I don't do funerals anymore. I stopped doing them in 2007 when, it's so weird, I just was talking about him today. Eric Floyd died. I went to his funeral and everything, and I'm like, that's it. And I've been condemned and criticized for that. And it's like, I don't need to see somebody in that condition. I want to remember them when they were doing it. And I look at everybody that comes in here. I'm trying to, I don't like showing this side of me anymore. I look at everybody that comes in here, they can do it. And I tell them, as I've told you, everybody that walks in these doors can do this. And they can do it the right way for them, that they're going to get everything out of it that they came here for. That's on them. I don't want the credit from your success, but I'm not taking the fall or the abuse from anybody's failure ever effing again. And that took me a long time to get to that point. And people can take what I'm saying right now. I don't really care how they take it. For me.
Do you know how you got to that point? What?
Yeah, when your kindness is, I'll say it this way, when your kindness, my own personal kindness and the kindness of Racing for Recovery, when it's not utilized the way that kindness was shown, I want no part of it. I have empathy for the pain that whatever's going on with that, but I'm not the fault, and this place is not the fault. And I immediately shift to those that are doing it right, and I still, and I'll say it this way, I don't know if you want to call it pray or send positive energy. I still send positive energy to that negativity, but that's not my problem. And I just stay out of it. And that I do what I do personally since day one of being sober. That's my go-to thing. I exercise, I eat right, I come in here my best in service to other people, and I love watching people get it and do it. And when the dark comes, I'm like, I'm not doing it. Took a long time to get there, man. I used to think, I gotta, what happened? Let me help. And I'm like, no, it's like a drug. If I hold drugs, you're gonna come to me and get them. And now I'm just holding the key for you guys to achieve everything you want. You gotta come get it.
And
Tough question. Maybe you ought to be a counselor.
And another question too. I had an interesting kind of realization that because my life's been going pretty good, And have you ever felt that all these awesome positive things are happening in your life, and you feel like you don't deserve it?
You've heard of the term the pink cloud, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The cliches of sobriety that are said, as you know, we usually come up with something totally different. When it's good, ride that wave as long as you can. But like all waves, that wave is gonna end, and it gives you an opportunity to swim out and catch another one. You know what I'm saying? So it's when it's good, ride it. Don't ride the wave and anticipate a bad fall because you miss the beauty of the wave.
Well, I guess I'm feeling of like my question is more towards like the life I have today. I don't feel like I deserve because of who I was.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm even the way I'm talking now right now to you, it feels fake because I just haven't been doing it long enough. I don't think, but I'm still in that process of creating this new individual. I think.
Do you think? Sorry.
No, but I'm trying to be as authentic as I can, and authenticity is the furthest thing that I've felt in a while. You know.
I feel your authenticity.
Yeah.
I don't. It's unfortunate you don't think you've deserved it yet,
Yes.
but you've definitely earned it. You've earned to speak the way you're honestly and with authenticity are speaking. You've earned that. I think the reason that we maybe feel we don't deserve things yet is because it's the impact of trauma, man, that still needs some more healing.
20 years of nonsense.
I don't like saying I can relate, but I understand not thinking you deserve it. I've had those thoughts too with a lot of this stuff.
Like I know my life I have today is the product of what I've done
Yes.
to get it. I get that part of it, but to feel like that I deserve it is a totally different animal. And I've just been struggling with that, you know, and like when I think it's like the bottom's going to drop out, it gets even better.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like.
So we're back to talking about big idea 3 and 4 again, right? When you're having those things of I don't deserve, I think that's it's a direct correlation of trauma. And it's an example of, wow, that impact of trauma really doesn't leave maybe when I think it should or whatever. But as long as I don't use and keep going, that's going to heal. And those feelings of I don't deserve, they become less often and less harsh. And you get back to celebrating the goodness of what you have earned.
You know, that's another big difference too, is like, you know, hardships I've gone through. I lost my grandpa, and, you know, broke my foot. You know, those are probably the 2 biggest things that has really happened to me. And using or drinking didn't even cross my mind.
There you go.
You know, and that was in retrospect, you know, I was like, wow, you know, you know, in such a little amount of time too, you know, because, you know, I mean, I'm only a year and some change into, you know, being sober, and that's quick, you know, that's pretty quick. Yeah. And, you know, compared to, you know, who I was then. And I think that's why I feel like the imposter that I do is because it's such a massive change, you know, but to deal with these hardships the way that I am and what comes out the other side, you know, I just wished I felt like I deserved it a little bit more than I do, you know.
Do me a solid and do your best to try not to use the word only. You have a year and 3 or 4 months, whatever. You have that. It's not only. Because think of the guy on that pallet.
Oh.
You'd kill to have a year, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the longer, look at it this way. I can't wait to talk to you when you have 5 years of sobriety and ask you, hey, do you still feel the same you did when you're on the podcast? And you're going to say, no, it's even better. That's what's coming.
And there's been so many markers like that already that I know you're right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, and the more I'm around the people in recovery, in the recovery community, you hear more and more of like how much better it gets and like all these things that happen that you never even thought of, you know, because I think you're so concentrated on like you're still detoxing from your old life, you know, and the way you're thinking and the way you handle things that like you don't have like all this built up yet for this new stuff to happen yet, you know.
Well, I want to say this, and we may or may not carry on from this, but when you're asking about dealing with the negative of sobriety, the day I quit self-destructing with drugs and the day that I started racing for recovery, I didn't know I was going to be talking to you specifically, but I knew that this feeling I'd be experiencing at this point. That's what the beauty of choosing sobriety is. You may not definitively know what's going to happen, but you know something good's going to happen. And that's what keeps me going. I really thank you for coming in here and doing this. And it sounds weird, but dude, I'm proud. I'm relieved to see what you're doing, and it's exciting. It's one of the things I come in here for is I benefit from watching other people shine. I love that. You're shining, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say too, like if you're sitting in that waiting room and you're thinking you're trying to find a way home, like I tried calling everyone I could to leave. I tried leaving the first 90 days I was here. 90 days, I tried leaving every single day, and no one would answer the phone. And everyone that did pick up said, "You're right where you need to be." And just give yourself the time to heal. Give it a year. It sounds like it's such a long period of time, but in retrospect, it's really not.
Yeah.
It's not. Take that year, and if you concentrate a year and you work on yourself, you're gonna feel like me. You're gonna feel like an imposter. That this new person has taken over his body, can't even recognize how you handle hardships and how you handle stuff, and being in the ER telling them you don't want pain pills instead of lying to them so you can get them type stuff. Like that's crazy. That's, it's been awesome experience since day one, trying new stuff, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, sharing my truth, even, doing this, this is part of it, That's why I felt so compelled to want to do this. And, I can't lie and say I was a little envious watching other people do it, I was like, oh, wow, I wish I could do that. And then you asked me, it was so weird. It was, so it's a no-brainer.
That's Brett with 2 T's, everybody. Share his podcast, subscribe, whatever you got to do to the Racing for Recovery YouTube channel. But thanks for watching. This has been a good one.